happy Thursday morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for daily devotions through Redeeming Life Fellowship. I'm Pastor Dan. I'm a teaching pastor here, and I'm so glad that you could join me not in my study, where I usually am, but on the threshold of my garage. And about 9:30 this morning, it is about 100 degrees out, it feels like. I'm smoking meats and drinking hot coffee. So if you have ever had any doubts in your mind that whether or not this pastor was a lunatic, now you know it's confirmed. But there's actually a few reasons why I'm out here. Now, one of them being, if you actually were here last night, I'm actually cooking the meat that you were enjoying then. So this is like a time travel, enjoying food from the past. Anyway, I digress. Also because I wanted to use this smoker that I love a lot as an illustration for where we're talking about what we're talking about in 2 Corinthians chapter 9 as a part of our reading plan today. It's a pretty short chapter. It's still a part of a larger section, which is 2 Corinthians 8 through 9, which is about this generosity that's encouraged as Paul is traveling from church to church and bringing up a collection for the poor who are in Jerusalem and throughout the regions of Judea. And so he's trying to his very best to sort of marshal the support of the churches throughout Asia Minor and Macedonia and Achaia and Corinth to try and help this church in Jerusalem, in Judea, in their most desperate time of need. And so this is at the forefront of this is the problem that's at the forefront of what Paul is dealing with here. But we're going to focus on chapter 9, and go ahead, if you like, it's a short chapter, pause, and look into chapter 9 there. And I'm going to get some more delicious hot coffee. Burn, baby, burn! So, let's first make a few reflections on the first few verses. One of them, you'll notice that in this section, the region of Macedonia is fixed at the forefront of of Paul talking about this giving and marshaling all the support of these churches for this gift to the believers in Jerusalem. And that's important for at least two reasons. One of them, we know that Paul is writing from Macedonia. He's among the Macedonians. There's a good chance that as he travels southward to Corinth, he might be bringing some of the Macedonians with him. And then carrying them along with him, following them in an entourage into Jerusalem. And one thing that's important to know is that there's a historic rivalry that spans a very long time between the region of Macedonia and the city of Corinth. And the other thing to know about Macedonia is that it's primarily agrarian, not very urban in its general landscape, and Corinth is very urban. And there is this long historic heated rivalry that's between these two different populaces of the people. And it seems as though when Paul, especially in chapter 8, talks about the grace that was shown the Macedonians, that out of their poverty they welled up in rich generosity to want to give to this need, this felt need that Paul was bringing to them. Why that's important, it seems, is that Paul is almost he's boasting about the Macedonians and how they responded to this gift or to this call to give out of their poverty. And what's even more fascinating is that the language that he uses about sharing and grace to describe this gift from the Macedonian churches, it's like he's describing the way in which this gift out of their enormous poverty only reflects all the brighter the richness of the kindness of God that has been shown towards them, so that by receiving deeply the gift of God's grace, that they're reflecting that grace in giving this gift. They're living out the grace of God that's been shown in their hearts, that they want to give, whatever it is that they happen to have, even beyond their means, to the church in Jerusalem. And that in some measure or another, Paul expects the Corinthians to behave in a similar fashion. Believe me, if it happened that the church in Corinth received Paul and there were Macedonians with them, and it turned out that these lowly Macedonians were giving more than the presumably wealthy, maybe even in some cases aristocratic and proud Corinthians who think very highly of themselves. If it turned out that the poor Macedonians were giving more than the Corinthians, then the Corinthians would have egg on their face. That this is a bad look for all the churches in Corinth. So it's almost as though Paul knows that there is this competition that he's wielding towards his advantage, and sort of stoking the fires, as it were, and getting the fires hotter, so that they're welling up in their motivation, not just to give out of, say, reluctance or compulsion, but to give in a way that is consistent with the way in which the Macedonians have given, not because they're wanting to necessarily one outgive the other, but rather that Paul desires that they reflect God's grace and his gift in the same way that the Macedonians have. And so that's something of a segue into the latter part of chapter 9. And I wanted to actually talk a little bit about this smoker. I love to barbecue. It's a hobby of mine. And because I think barbecue is delicious, and smoked barbecue is even better, because it gives me a time to cook things low and slow and be outside, talk with people here and there, read a good book, enjoy a hot drink or a cold drink, I guess hot on the hot days. But I mean, all of this is because I really do love barbecue. It is a passion of mine. But when I wanted to get the smoker, I remember telling Julie that I want to be able to get a big smoker, because I'm looking forward to the day, the opportunity that I'm going to be a lot better at grilling, and there's going to be an opportunity to grill and barbecue for lots and lots of people, so that if there's any measure in which God has given me any kind of gift with the barbecue, I don't want this just for me. I don't want this just for you and I don't want this just for my family. I want whatever it is that I have, what's been entrusted to my possessions, I want this to be a blessing to somebody else. I want to share the gift of barbecue, delicious meats, nourishment, food around a table, building relationships and community, and I want this to be instrumental in that. And because a barbecue can be used for anything, but I believe that God has, and I'm sure he will continue to, use not just barbecue, but table fellowship in general to be able to bring out people on the outside into the kingdom of God. And if he can use a barbecue to do it, that's all the more exciting. And what's happening in 2 Corinthians chapter 9 is that Paul is wanting the Corinthians to reflect on what it is that they're doing with what God's given them, particularly within their wealth and their finances. Let's read a little bit. It says, "Remember this, Whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly. Whoever sows generously will also reap generously. In other words, when we're looking at the things that God's given us, sometimes there's risk involved, but it's also, he wants them to remember is that, like say if you had a fistful of seed in your hands, some of it you might need for your own nourishment, but some of it you know that you have to sow so that it's going to produce more seeds. So that you're not just thinking about what you need right now, but you're also thinking about not only what you need in the future, but what others need in the future. And that a prudent view of your wealth and your finances isn't just thinking about what is it that I need right now, but rather, God, what would you have me do with the things that you've entrusted to my care, and not just simply so I can survive, but so that it can be a blessing and a gift of grace to others around me. And he's getting the Corinthians to ponder that. And it says, further on, each man should give what he has decided in his heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. And listen to this. And God is able, this is verse 8, to make all grace abound to you, so that in all things, at all times, having all that you need, you will abound in every good work. As it is written, he has scattered abroad his gifts to the poor, his righteousness endures forever. And now he who supplies seed to the sower and bread for food will also supply and increase your store of seed, and will enlarge your harvest of the harvest of your righteousness. You will be made rich in every way, so that you can be generous on every occasion, and through us your generosity will result in thanksgiving to God. When the Corinthians are generous with what God's given them, it reflects God's kindness, the riches of his grace to all of those around them, so that their generosity is not just a matter of giving wherever there's a need, but rather it's a living act of worship that says, God, I can see how it is that everything that you've poured out is an act of grace, whether common grace or special grace. It is all of grace. And that there's nothing that I have that I can say in a totally complete sense that this is my own, but rather this is from you. And because you were so gracious and so kind to give this to me, I have the freedom, the liberty, even the encouragement to be generous with what I have to give to other people. What's so fascinating about this is that when this happens, God uses you as an agent, as a vessel, as a carrier of his grace to provide for those who are in need. And I hope that for all of us, as a church at Redeeming Life, that becomes the way that we think about not just only our possessions, but as it was put in a church I used to belong to, I think they put it well, that is, what do we do in a way that honors and glorifies God with our time, with our testimony, with our treasure, and there was another T, I can't remember. I'll remember it later. But anyway, that we reflect God's grace and our generosity towards others. Now, of course, I know that this passage has been abused, even in some cases where people who are rich, who are beckoning to the poor people to give so that they can line their wealthy pockets. So whenever you're being generous, it's also important to exercise wisdom with your generosity and not just give it away to anybody or everybody or any occasion, but rather we don't want to miss an opportunity to be God's agents of grace towards others in need when there's legitimate need, so that they too can experience in a tangible way the grace of God in meeting a very practical need. That's a lot of what we're dealing with in 2 Corinthians chapter 9. I hope that for those of you who have seen this, that you'll have enjoyed some of this this barbecue, and that if the barbecue is any good, that we have more of these and bring more people in to not just enjoy a delicious meal, but to be able to build fellowship, to build relationships, and to create an opening into people's lives so that we can pour into their lives the rich and powerful and transforming grace of God. So if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to this YouTube channel, and check out our Facebook page, website, all that jazz. Remember, I love you all very much. It's been a delight being here with you, as I probably have a few degrees more sunburn now than I did when we started this video, which is okay. It's just a little sunburn, right? But I love you all very much, and I can't wait till I see you next video, or next Wednesday, next Sunday. It'll be exciting. So God bless you all.